All right, Gary Wilson here. I've got a little random message here for Snooker Loopy. Got the lyrics here. I'm guessing you want us to sing the song. Absolutely, not a problem. Snooker Loopy, not so we, me and him and them and me. We'll show you what we can do with a load of balls in a snooker queue. Pop the reds in, screw back for the yellow, green, brown, blue, pink and black. Snooker Loopy, not so we, we're all Snooker Loopy. Cheers, guys.
16 days of podcasting action. Many people singing Snooker Loopy. Some would say too many, but we disagree. Because we are here at the heart of snooker silliness. We're here inside the place where there's Stuart Bingham's hot tub to the left of me. There's Dominic Dale singing karaoke to the right. We are here live at the Snooker Loopy podcast arena, right next door to the Crucible in Sheffield, where it belongs. And my name is Tom Mayhew, and I'm joined as always by my very, very good friend. It's Joe, the silent assassin, Hannard!
Well, a very good evening, Hazel. Good evening, everyone. And welcome back to our penultimate Crucible Roundup of the World Snooker Championship 2024, and also the penultimate episode of the podcast on your channel, Tom. It's very exciting times. We're just a couple of days away now from the big launch of the Snooker Loopy podcast YouTube channel, and hopefully, Tom, it goes a little bit smoother than the launch of the Co-op Live Arena in Manchester.
To be fair though, Joe, if it goes as badly as the arena in Manchester, it would get us a bit of press. So maybe we should aim for a disaster.
Yes, so, we'll have failed launches, we'll have the podcast moving venues and all sorts.
Yeah, take that, we're going to be on the podcast next week. We're going to have Gary Barlow singing Snooker Loopy, but it's all gone wrong. It's all gone wrong.
Oh, that's a dream for the future, Tom. That is a dream for the future. But yes, I mean, speaking of Snooker Loopy and getting people to do it, those of you that were listening yesterday, I have no idea if Tom kept this in the podcast.
I did,
about,
mate.
Yeah, about us trying to get Stephen Hendry to do it. Well, within about 10 minutes of me sending off the order, it came back rejected, saying awkward and not really my thing, mate, sorry. So I don't think we're going to get 7 times doing Snooker Loopy, Tom, as much as we might try.
Do you know what, though? If any other of the snooker players had said that, whether Stuart Bingham had said that, or Gary Wilson, even JV and Dennis, if they'd said that, I'd go, fair enough, mate. That's fair enough. I respect you, I like you, and you don't have to sing just because we've paid you. But with Stephen Hendry, not really my thing. I'm sorry, mate. You were on telly dressed up singing as a rubbish bin.
Yeah.
Oh, but singing Snooker Loopy for a fan, that's too far, apparently.
Yeah, it's a disappointment, but hey, we move on, and we will hopefully get many, many more players and fans to share their wonderful dulcet tones of Snooker Loopy with us. But yeah, of course, it's the final of the World Snooker Championship, and Kyron Wilson and Jack Jones, of course, started off first 8 frames this afternoon, 9 frames this evening. And I always think, Tom, that 9-frame session on the evening always has some drama in it, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But the afternoon session, of course, Kyron came out firing a century in the first frame after not getting a single century for either finalist in the semi-final. That was a great start for him, wasn't it? And it set him up nicely for the rest of the session.
There was some sort of stat, one of the commentators said, that they said the last player to get a century in the first frame in the final was Hendry, which tells you how rarely it happens, because that must be at least 20 odd years ago, if not
22. Yeah.
Also, I would say a pretty poor start by Jack. Frankly, It's strange because I felt he looked a bit tired, and that could have harmed his performance. But then I was like, yeah, but you've only got yourself to blame. You're the one who likes to slow the frames down and drag it out. So if you're tired, it'd be like Peter Ebdon back in the day going, oh, I'm really tired. That last match took ages. Like, yeah, because of you.
I mean, yeah, I never quite understand it. It always seems to happen with whoever's in the second semi-final tends to always struggle on the first session of the final. I think the only exception to that is maybe Ronnie in 2020 when he had that incredible semi-final with Mark Selby, which went on quite late, and then he came back and he demolished Kyron Wilson in the in the first session. But it starts at 1 o'clock. If it started at 10 o'clock, like on all the other days, I'd sort of understand that. But 1 o'clock's quite a late start, really, for the World Championship. So I'm not sure I subscribe to that theory as much. And certainly at the end of the day, we had interviews straight after the session finished. I don't know if you've seen them, Tom, with Rob Walker.
That's a new thing, right? That doesn't usually
yeah,
happen.
That's never happened before. But he shoved a microphone in Jack Jones's face, and the events that led to it, he came out saying he was tired. I can almost guarantee had the last frame went the other way, he wouldn't have said that. So it's very interesting, the psychology of it all. Yeah, Kyron, of course, raced into a 7-0 lead early in the final, and we were thinking, oh, could this be over with a session to spare? But of course, he still needed, at that point, 11 frames to win the whole thing. So it's one of those crazy things that actually 7-0 isn't that far behind. And certainly in my mind was thinking about Mark Williams being 7-1 down to Judd Trump in the semi-final in 2022. So it certainly wasn't over at that point, but Jack Jones did well to come out of the first session just 7-1 rather than 8-0.
Yeah, and I liked his attitude coming into the second session. He came out with sort of a smile on his face, and
he did, yeah.
You can kind of tell he just sort of shrugged it off a bit and just thought, well, I'm going to get on with it and play my game. And actually, I will say, it's been really interesting the first two sessions because, and I don't know whether it's just because Jack's been behind, so he feels like he has to play a slightly different game. But I felt he's been less defensive and less sort of negatively in terms of his tactics than he was in the previous rounds. Like he still is. There's still a bit of that because that's the way he plays, and that's fair enough. But I do generally think he's got on with it a bit more, and maybe it's because he's not had the lead. Maybe it's a difference between Jose Mourinho being 1-0 up and parking the bus, or Jose being 2-0 down and going, right, we've got to overturn this. Maybe it's something like that where he's not allowed himself to get bogged down in it, and it's made the final a lot more watchable than some people feared.
Yeah, I think part of that also has to do with the way Kyron's played. Kyron's played quite open, quite attacking, and when the balls don't go awkward, it's very difficult to play an awkward game. So I think part of it is how the balls ran throughout the whole day, really. We didn't have many awkward frames, and I think that's ultimately what contributed to Jack playing a little bit more fluently. But as you say, he came out firing 2 frames in a row, got it down to 7-3, and just 4 frames behind. And I know a few times throughout the night they were referring to, he's back to just 5 behind, but he actually got within 4 there right at the start of the evening and was looking good. I think he got in the 3rd frame of the evening session, but then missed, and Kyron did what Kyron's been very good at in this tournament and scored, with a 1 visit frame, and certainly by the mid-session interval it was back to where we started at 9-3.
It was, yeah. And then, by the end, I think Jack Jones did win the session, but the last frame, which, Joe, of course, for most of the past 3 weeks, Joe has been asking for a black ball final. Well, we did have a bit of black ball tension in the frame. It was, they were both playing on the black ball. We had a nice little safety battle for about 5 minutes. Very exciting. A few times.
It was incredible, wasn't it?
I was sat watching it with my 93-year-old grandpa, and we were going like, oh, it was a real kind of, you felt like you were in the audience and the shots were going to go in. It was so exciting and so tense, and I'm glad we got that moment. It's slightly too early for it to be like Dennis and Steve, but even so, just fantastic to watch.
But isn't a lot of that down to John Virgo and his incredible ability to convey a dramatic moment in a snooker match? I really feel sorry for the people that must have been watching Eurosport at that point, because I don't think they would have felt anywhere near the same tension, in my opinion.
To make a confession, Joe, I was watching it, as I said, with my 93-year-old grandpa, and he doesn't like the commentary, so we had it on mute.
Okay.
So we had no commentary, but it was still exciting. You still got the tension.
Tom. You should have had Virgo through your headphones or something. Oh my God. You'll have to rewatch it with Virgo's commentary.
I'd be the only person sat at home with one of those in-ear pieces in my ear.
Like, genuinely, it was incredible. And, well, I don't think we'll ever see anything like that, again in this match. But hey, who knows? Who knows? Maybe it was a preview for what's going to happen tomorrow night in the last frame. And yeah, Kyron got over the line in the end. Obviously, Jack Jones did pot the ball that he required to make it Snooker's required. So he was 29 in front with 27 on the table. He had that frame in the bag to go 10-7, and we've seen it so many times in the past. I'm thinking 2014 when Selby made it 10-7 against Ronnie. And I think Bingham made it 10-7 against Sean Murphy. And Selby made it 10-7 against John Higgins. The person behind, if they can get it to 10-7, they almost go favourites the next day because it's such a body blow to their opponent. And I think especially had Kyron lost that and been only 3 in front after being 7 in front earlier in the afternoon, that would have been a big moment. As it happens, it's 11-6, Tom. I don't think it's over yet for Jack Jones. I know Stephen Hendry disagrees with that. But I think if Jack Jones comes out and wins 3 of the opening 4 tomorrow, that makes it 12-9. If he wins tomorrow's afternoon session 5-3, he's just 14-11 behind. And I think that's very much squeaky bum time for Kyron Wilson once it gets there.
Just a random question, Joe, but would you respect Stephen Hendry's opinion more if you had a recording of him singing Snooker Loopy?
No.
Hi, I'm Stephen Hendry. I used to play snooker.
Yeah, it was a great first day of the final. I think it took a while to get going in terms of the tension because obviously when it's very one-sided, you feel like, I feel a bit sorry for Jack Jones. But the crowd got behind him massively tonight, and I think that made a big difference. I'm glad Dennis wasn't in the commentary box because the amount of times the camera went on Jack's family, he would have just kept going, there's Vicky. But yeah, it was a great first day. And actually, one thing I will say about the BBC's coverage today, they had some excellent features. Right at the start of the match, they had Steve Davis doing the maths of snooker almost, which I found hilarious because it was Steve Davis. At the start of tonight's session, they had some random graphic of big snooker balls going through Sheffield, which was really bizarre. But at the mid-session interval, I don't know if you caught it, they did a view of the tournament from different areas. So they had the press room, they had referees, they had the fans, and they had the commentary box, and for each of the 4 rounds up to the final. It was just really nice to watch a recap of the tournament. And I think that's one of the things that BBC do so well with their snooker coverage, is their montages and their sort of recap of what's happened.
Yeah, one of the other features I really liked was when Steve Davis was doing a demonstration of Kyron's cue technique. And he showed him how Kyron pulls the cue all the way back and then puts it forward. And he did it a few times. And then it was like a minute and a half build up. And then Steve takes the shot. He miscues, and accidentally the cue ball jumps over the object ball, and he just goes, "Oh, that's what happens when you try and play with someone else's cue." And it was just a really funny moment. Like, I'm sure it wasn't intentional, but it just really made me laugh. That he'd really built up this, I'm going to do a demonstration of why this cue technique is so impressive and so useful, and then he completely fluffed it up.
Yeah, I don't really know why they got Steve Davis to do that. He's very barely picked up a cue since he retired in 2016. So,
well, did you see actually the feature they did with? They did the pop quiz. Did you see when they had John Parrott?
Well, I can't remember. Did he do particularly well?
No, he was the slowest of anyone.
He was the slowest. Yeah, there was. Yeah, I knew it was one way or the other, but I've seen John Parrott play quite well in the seniors and stuff.
But it was just bizarre.
Clearly not on pop quiz.
They had him running around trying to pot them all, and you had Sean going, "Oh, come on, John, we're live, we've got to get this done," and Parrott really panicking. And then in the background, you could see, I think it was Kyron and Gilbert both practicing. And I was like, wow, so they're trying to practice for their semi-final while they've got John Parrott and Sean Murphy prattling about in front of them.
Wow. So was that this year?
Yeah. That was this year.
Yeah, I didn't even know that they'd done pop quiz this year.
Oh, they did.
I've not seen any of those pop quizzes. Well, I guess because I've been at work, I'll have to try and hunt them down.
Yeah, it's been good fun. I mean, Judd won it, so, you know.
Oh. Spoiler alert.
That's very true. I have to bleep out his name. Which works on 2 levels, because it's like I'm calling him a rude word, so...
Yeah.
But yeah, fantastic start to the final. One thing I was disappointed by, I was quite disappointed, really, to see a fair few empty seats at the Crucible. And obviously, we're talking relative. I'd still say it was probably 96% full, but there was enough empty seats that there was a few shots where you'd go, oh, there's no one sat there. There's no one in that bit of the second row. There's no one sat in this section. And for all the talk of snooker needing a bigger venue, you do kind of have to go, I mean, let's be honest, there's only about 5 players who could fill out a 3,000-seat venue. If a World Championship final still has people who have bought tickets who don't turn up, it's just not great, is it?
No, it's not. I think there's possibly 2 reasons behind it. I think one reason is the final that happened. I think quite a few people may have returned their tickets to get their money back. Equally, I think there's a lot of corporate deals and sponsors and sort of VIP trips that are offered at various times throughout the year, and I wonder if it's these competitions that don't have any winners that have caused it. Because, you know, if you think back 10, 15 years ago, I can't remember, obviously, there being empty seats. You know, I can't say it's something that I've noticed too much in the past until they sort of brought in this whole Century Club and this hospitality VIP thing. You know, £660 a ticket for front row seats at the final. You know, maybe that's why you're not filling up your arena. It was quite disappointing, and it is a bit of an embarrassment for the sport when your pinnacle match doesn't have a full stadium.
Especially when you're trying to give it the big one and talk about how this venue's not big enough, we need a venue 3 times the size, all this stuff, and you just go...
It's nonsense, absolute nonsense. You know, I think Ali Pali holds about 2,000 fans in London, and they tend to fill that out, but you've got to remember, every match at the Masters, it's a cliche, could be a final, because it's the top 16 players. They're all in incredible form usually. It's high standard. Everybody's going to go and watch that. Today, buying tickets for World Championship 2025, I think by about 9:45, all of the final tickets had been sold. So apparently it's a sellout, but clearly not.
I just think if you're the type of person who's up early enough to buy tickets, to get tickets for the final, surely you must love snooker and just want to watch the final. But
Exactly.
But there are people who only want to go if it's, as I said, one of about 5 players. And even then, there's some people who would still complain if, it's Selby, I don't like the way he plays, even though he's brilliant. Do you know what I mean? There's still people who would complain about seeing good people.
And I'd be one of them, but yeah.
Well, you would be, Joe.
I'm only joking. On that topic, I did successfully get tickets for next year, so I will be going Thursday evening and Friday morning of the first week next year.
I am going to go on the 26th of April.
Wow. I don't know when that is. Is that the Saturday?
Saturday the 26th of April, afternoon session.
Fantastic.
I've no idea.
Middle Saturday, yeah.
There we go, that's where I'm going.
Yeah. Are you going with Livy?
Yeah, Livy very kindly booked them for us this morning, so I'll get to finally go to the Crucible.
That is awesome.
I'm really excited. It's a thing where I think we've looked in previous years and maybe gone, it's expensive, or we're not sure, but in a way of it potentially moving, I'm like, I want to go at least once. Yeah,
I'm thinking possibly next year, trying to go all in to see the final, but next year's ticket window for 2026.
I was thinking you were a bit late for...
No, 2026 or maybe even 2027, but...
Well, hopefully by then, mate, we'll be such a big snooker podcast that they'll just be inviting us.
To fill up those empty seats, yes.
We will watch anyone.
Well, careful what you wish for, Tom. Careful what you wish for.
I personally am looking forward to a Barry Pinches versus Peter Lyons final.
Well, that might happen in the World Seniors next week.
That's very true.
But yeah, no, good to hear, Tom. Good to hear that you're going to be there next year. I think one of the listeners to the podcast I fail to remember who it was, but somebody tweeted me and said they're going to Middle Saturday next year as well. So you'll be able to form a bit of a Snooker Loopy podcast meetup. And the last 2 years I've went on Middle Saturday, but this year just decided to go a different day. I'm sorry, Tom.
That's all right, mate. I'll have to come to some event in Manchester or something like that.
And his opponent, he's brought his A game to the Crucible and is 4 frames away from a 4th semi-final in 7 years. Clearly happy, clearly enjoying his snooker again, and he'll be desperate to produce the goods tonight. His sons Finlay and Bailey are watching in the crowd. Come on, Daddy, come on the Warrior, come on, Kyron Wilson.
Joe, for this special World Championship Final Edition, shall we cue the music?
Let's cue the music, Hazel.
I've got a very, I guess, one-of-a-kind offering for you here, Joe. Because you might remember, do you remember a few years ago there was that thing called coronavirus?
I know exactly what this is going to be.
Do you remember, Joe, we all really needed something to help us get through, to give us hope, to lift us up, to bring us joy. We needed maybe a piece of, I don't know, theatre, or maybe even a song. Possibly we needed to really give us hope and help us get through a really dark time in our lives. Well, fear not, Joe, because a bunch of snooker-related people came together to record their own song.
Snookerade, I think, is what we can call it. Yeah, I remember this one.
The Snooker Family Song for NHS Key Workers Globally. Now, I remember this, Joe, and I remember listening to it only once because that was enough. So...
Yeah, it was interesting from what I remember, but we will see. To see Cliff Thorburn's beautiful face.
Maybe outside of the pandemic, we'll see it in a different light.
Ready to rock and roll, Tom?
I think I am as ready as I ever have been for this one. So
4 minutes 31, Tom, that we're never going to get back here.
Oh, God. Okay, well, to be fair, we did waste far more of Fion's time. So
True.
For him alone,
that is true.
We should put ourselves
for Fionn.
For Fionn!
Every vow you break, every smile you fake, every claim you stake, I'll be watching you. Every move you make, every step you take, I'll be watching you.
You've got to stay at home, protect the NHS and save lives. Stay safe.
I'll be watching you. Stay safe, stay strong, and stay indoors.
Oh, God. Oh, Jimmy looks like he's been living on the streets. I think, you know what, Tom? I seem to remember that being a WST run thing. I can't believe it was a Snooker Legends run thing, but... Well, there's a lot to break down.
I almost feel like, Joe, we need to do a reaction video to this whole thing, because there's so many little bits.
I think that's something for the new channel, but I'm going to call this Snookerade. I mean, there was some very good bits. There were some absolutely awful bits. And I have no idea how we are going to possibly put this together. A rating. I honestly do not know. I mean, I'm amazed that it actually made up the song, but it did. Obviously, we did have Joe Johnson in there, and I think he was the highlight of the song, personally.
I think Joe Johnson was the best bit. I also really enjoyed John Virgo doing his "Come on, Hurricane" speech.
I'll be watching you. And Dennis goes, stay at home, save lives. I mean, we could have saved thousands of lives had Dennis just been doing those daily briefings every day. Stay at home, save lives, Hazel.
Yep, I agree. I think Dennis should be PM, frankly, as far as I'm concerned.
But, I mean, Dominic Dale, goodness me. I'm going to be crucified for saying this, but whoever told Dominic Dale that he could sing?
Are you implying that Dominic Dale is the worst of these singers?
No, he's not by a long stretch, but I think Dominic Dale thinks he's bringing it all together. And I also didn't appreciate the moment where he got his finger very close to the screen and went, "I'll be watching you."
He does a bit where he looks right down the camera and goes, "I'll be watching you.
I'll be watching you.
It's like he's in his head going, right, if Simon Cowell sees this, he'll go, let's sign him up. This guy's the new Robbie Williams.
I mean, Ken did a cracking job. He did a better job than he did of Snooker Loopy.
Because it didn't sound like Ken singing based on Snooker Loopy.
Yeah, no, I think it was. Mark Selby did a decent job. Sean Murphy was pretty monotone, as you'd expect. Bingham didn't do as good a job as I thought he would. And then we just had, some random guys in garages singing.
Well, my favourite bit of it is the 2 seconds where it's Bingham doing a little bit on his own.
Yeah.
Has anyone got the full unedited version? Because presumably Bingham sang the whole song and they just cut that bit out. I'd love to just see him.
Does that mean that it exists where John Virgo sings it all in his Come On Hurricane voice?
I hope so. I'd like to think that is out there somewhere. It uses a lot of players or a lot of people related to snooker who are not the actual snooker players. And they're used because they're good at singing. But in a way, that's the worst bit.
Yeah.
Especially because the lead guy who's good at singing, who's in the thumbnail, at first, looking at the thumbnail, I thought it was John Higgins. And I'm so disappointed that it's not him.
Yeah, I seem to have memories of John Higgins singing in that song. Did WST do a rival one? I mean, I just have memories of John Higgins singing, but...
Is this the 4-away version of the WST song?
It could well be the Mandela effect, Tom.
But yeah, it says they had World Snooker Final snooker stars such as Jimmy White, Stephen Hendry, Mark Selby, Ken Doherty and Stuart Bingham. They've joined players from the Senior Snooker Tour, the Women's Snooker Tour and the World Disability Tour. It's weird, isn't it, Joe? Because for some reason this wasn't officially released as a single.
Yeah.
When clearly it's got #1 written all over it.
I think so. I think had they had, a couple of other big names in there, the Nugget, for instance, obviously Dennis was in there.
Ian the Shirt does a rap.
Lee the Shirt, Tom,
Lee
not
the
Ian.
Shirt. Why, where's Ian come from then?
Yes, Ian Taylor and John Dennis. Interestingly enough, Ian Hunt used to present the Welsh Open coverage, so it would be like, thank you, Ian, from Darren Morgan. But yeah, how do we rate that? Because I think there's parts of the song that would get a 10 out of 10, i.e. Joe Johnson's bit. But there's bits that would get a 2 out of 10, such as Lee the Shirt's rap.
Really? I thought he did a decent job.
No, he did.
He had disco lights on.
I think I'm going to give it a 6, I think. 6 out of 10. I think it's poorly edited. I think it could have been a bit sharper. Obviously, it was difficult in COVID times, but yeah. I want to see the unedited version of all of those singing it.
Mate, I would pay so much money to see the unedited version of Dennis singing it and Bingham singing it. Like, there were times where you had people singing together and I was like, I really want Sean Murphy's isolated vocals, which is not a thought I ever thought was going to enter my head, but it did. I was like, I want to hear
John
them.
Virgo. I really want John Virgo's full version. And obviously we want Joe Johnson's full version. That would get 10 out of 10, probably.
I like the fact they put Ken and Joe back to back as if they have a real rivalry over who the better singer is.
Yeah. Well, they were just foreshadowing the Snooker Loopy podcast, because to be fair, in there we had Dennis Taylor, we had John Virgo, Ken, Mark Selby, Dominic Dale, Stuart Bingham, John Virgo, obviously. I mean, I've said so many, Joe Johnson, so many of the people that we have rated in this Cue the Music. So, Tom, you've got to give it your rating now.
I'm really, really torn. Because when something is both brilliant and awful, but could have been much better and much worse.
True, yeah.
It's kind of a real charm to it, I think. And I think it's really sweet they did it. And
I agree.
We will say once again, the song says it features Stephen Hendry, but he just speaks because he doesn't want to sing.
Again, foreshadowing.
You were singing to save lives, Stephen, but even then, you're too cool to sing. But hey, dress you up as a rubbish bin, suddenly it's all fun.
Yeah, he probably preferred the 50 grand that he got paid for doing it, I reckon. Maybe that's what we need to do, Tom, is give him 50 grand and he'll do it.
Am I going mad? I don't know what to rate this, mate.
Well, let me give you a bit of context. So, among your sixes are I'm a Clown by Peter Ebdon, Snooker Loopy by Crafty Ken, Catch the Pigeon by Crafty Ken. Among your fives are The Journey by Peter Devlin, Chasing Cars by Mark Selby. Among your sevens are Man's Long Pot by Peter Devlin, Snooker Loopy by Stuart Bingham, The Fall of Paradise by Peter Ebdon, and among your eights are Let Me Entertain You by Stephen Hendry's Rubbish, Snooker Loopy by John Virgo.
I might reevaluate my Stephen Hendry scores at this rate, mate, to be honest.
And Everlasting Love by Joe Johnson.
Do you know what? I think it would be a 5, but those 2 seconds by Bingham, by Bingham are worth a whole point, so I'm going to give it a 6.
Give it a 6. Okay, fair enough. Right, so that's a 6 from both of us. Of course, giving it an average score of 6, and that will pop it into 22nd in our league table. So Every Breath You Take by Snooker Raid falls just on level terms with I'm a Clown by Peter Ebdon. It's behind Snooker Loopy by Dennis Taylor, but ahead of Snooker Loopy by Crafty Ken.
I'll also say what it has going for it, and I presume this is actually the point of it, is that, you know, as a song, it's not excellent, but it does make you smile. It's I really enjoyed watching that, seeing all the little cameos and the different people pop up.
Yeah. And obviously Cliff Thorburn was there at the start, so...
Rhiannon Evans popped up.
Yeah, Michaela Tab. No, it was good. I think could have been better, but as you say, could have been a lot worse. I think they need to get rid of all of the random people. If it was all snooker players that were doing it, and maybe some snooker referees, and, you know, I think it could have been an 8 or a 9, to be honest with you.
It's a weird complaint, because we're literally saying, if you had worse singers singing it, but they were snooker players, we'd prefer it.
Yeah, well, Tom, this isn't a show about musical talent. This is about entertainment value.
What, are we running the X Factor nowadays?
This is the Snooker X Factor. And we've now officially got a top 32 of snooker songs for Cue the Music.
Christ alive, how have we done that?
Well, there's more to come as well. That's the worst thing. But yeah, great find, Tom. Thank you for reminding me of that. You know, delve deeply into my long-term memory there, and not something I've thought about for 4 years. But no, appreciate it. So thank you. And as much as lockdown was, of course, a very interesting time, it was completely awful for a hell of a lot of people. I do look back at that time with fondness of simpler times, and obviously we got involved very heavily with the Virtual World Snooker Championship. You know, we got opportunities that we would never have gotten had lockdown never happened. So, you know, I do look back at that time quite fondly, and yeah, it was nice to sort of take that trip down memory lane. So thanks, Tom.
I'll be watching you.
Speaking of which, shall we cue the laughter?
Yeah, let's cue the laughter, why not?
So, those of you that have been listening to all of our Crucible daily catch-ups, if you like, will know that I have been testing Tom on his knowledge of top 16s of
Joe,
times gone
please.
by. And I thought, you know, since this is the final one, or the penultimate episode of the podcast, before we know this year's winner, I thought I would get out the 2022 programme, Tom. Of course, the year that Ronnie O'Sullivan won his 7th world title, equaling Stephen Hendry's record. And I thought, let's test him on the top 16 of 2 seasons ago. In theory, this should be very easy for Tom. However, looking at this top 16, I think he will do well to match his record, which I believe was 15. You got 15 out of 16 for 2015. It was Marco Fu that let you down. I will give you the clue, as always, that 10 of the current top 16 were in the top 16 in 2022, which is about what it was in 2015, 2012 and 2011. It's bizarre. And you've got 3 strikes, but then you're out. So good luck and see how you get on.
Ronnie O'Sullivan.
Okay.
Mark Selby.
Correct. Defending champion.
Judd Trump.
Yep.
Mark Williams.
Mm-hmm.
John Higgins.
Yep.
Sean Murphy.
Correct.
Neil Robertson.
Correct.
Kyron Wilson.
Correct.
Mark Allen.
Correct.
Ding Junhui.
Your first wrong answer.
Oh, Christ. There's him and Bingham. I can't remember which years they qualified, which years they didn't, but Stuart Bingham.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So for context, you've still got 2 of the current top 16 that you've not said, and there are a further 1, 2, 3, 4 players. So you've got 6 to go.
Jack Lisowski.
Correct.
John Higgins.
You've already said him, but I won't strike you out for that one. There's 1 world champion that you are missing.
Right, it's definitely not Hendry. I'm not making that mistake again. It's not Joe Johnson. I said Sean Murphy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Neil Robertson, I've said him.
Mm-hmm.
Said Bingham.
Mm-hmm.
Was he a world champion at this point?
In 2022?
Yeah.
No, he wasn't.
Luca Brissell.
Correct. Good question. Good question. So what you've got left, Tom, are 2 Triple Crown title winners, World Championship runner-up, and a World Championship semi-finalist.
Ali Carter.
No. Second
What?
strike gone. Second strike.
God.
Now you've got to be very careful, Hazel.
Barry Hawkins?
Correct. He's your World Championship finalist. So all of the current top 16 players are now gone. So there are 3 left. 2 of them, well, all 3 of them did not qualify for this year's World Championship for various reasons.
Are 2 of them banned?
Perhaps.
Yang Bingtao.
Correct. He's a Masters winner.
Jing Tong.
And Xingtong, of course, UK Championship winner. So you've got 1 more to go. Didn't qualify for the Crucible this year, but a former World Championship semi-finalist. This to break the record.
Oh, God. Okay.
For a full house.
It's not going to be Alan McManus.
I'd love it if it was, though.
What a comeback, mate. What a comeback. It's not Gilbert, because he qualified. It's not Gary Wilson, because he qualified. It's not Maguire, because he qualified. So how many semis did they reach? That's my final question I'm going to ask.
1.
A one-off? Okay. The gentleman Joe Perry?
Oh, unlucky.
Oh,
unlucky.
no!
Final clue. They were involved in a final frame decider in their semi-final year. It took place on the same day as Mark Selby and Ronnie O'Sullivan's
The
classic.
original silent assassin, Anthony McGill.
Correct. Unlucky, Tom. 15 out of 16. You will get 1 more opportunity to get 16 out of 16 in tomorrow's episode, where I will be testing you on another top 16. I'm not going to tell you which top 16, but I am going to test you on another one.
I reckon even the top 16 from this year would be hard to get, considering how many of them lost in the first round.
Well, we'll find out. Or maybe we won't now that you're onto it.
No, let's do it, mate. Let's do it.
By the way, Tom, just to talk about Cue the Music one more time, that video has 147 likes on Facebook.
Really?
Yes.
We can't change that. That is beautiful. Wonder if they did that on purpose somehow.
Yeah, paid 147 bots to do that.
Beautiful. Let us know what you got in the quiz down below. I'm sure plenty of people would have got 16. I'm a bit annoyed at not getting McGill, but
I think that was a tough one, particularly because of the band players. That was really tough. So well done on getting that one.
depending on whether they ever come back, I wonder whether Bing Tao and Xing Tong might end up being like pointless answers in the future in terms of players who achieved a lot and then just disappeared. Because if they don't come back, then they would surely have the shortest professional careers for, major winners.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a lot of the foundation for this breakaway tour, is that they would perhaps be playing on that tour instead.
Really?
I've heard a lot about that.
Isn't that very, very dodgy to go, we're going to allow match fixers back in just for fun?
Yeah. Maybe Stephen Lee will turn up, who knows? The Stephen Lee Invitational. And it's just a tournament between Liang Wenbo, Stephen Lee, Zhao Xingtong, Yan Bingtao, Yu Delu, Mark King, and John Higgins. And Jamie Jones, Stuart Bingham, all of these players that have been banned for match fixing in some way, shape or form.
No, Stuart Bingham bet on matches. He didn't fix anything.
Yeah, it just had a ban. Poorly phrased from me.
Well, Ronnie had a ban for being on drugs when he beat Ken in a final.
Yeah, different scenario, I think, but yeah. Quinton Han.
We're going to dig up Alex Higgins as well. He had plenty of bans.
Oh, God.
147, that's my idea of heaven.
But there we are, Joe. Not the finalists anyone would have predicted, but I think they've both played really well. They've both produced a fantastic spectacle so far, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they can do again tomorrow.
It's going to be an absolute cracker, so sit tight, enjoy, and we will be back tomorrow to review it all, or at least just the final. We'll be back to review it all in a couple of days.
Yeah, we'll do a really short review of the final tomorrow on my channel, and then after that, if you're someone who listens on YouTube, you have to go over to @SnookerLoopy_podcast. If you're on Spotify or Acast or Apple, it'll still be the same for you guys, so don't worry. But the rest of you, if you could head over there and subscribe, please do. And we'll have loads of sort of YouTube exclusives there, I think. There'll be stuff that is snooker related that we might go, oh, this is relevant to snooker, but it's not relevant to the podcast. So there'll be other stuff on there that is outside of the podcast, like
Tom's annual Suits video,
or videos of Sean Murphy commentating on himself,
or Ken Doherty catching the pigeon.
All these sort of silly things will pop up there, and maybe even some completely different things. Like we could, for example, Joe could get some videos from practice and his match play now that he's playing more regularly and competing. That's different things. So many different aspects of snooker we'll be able to cover, I think, a bit more with the hub. So yeah, it's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting, and obviously we want to build a community where everybody can sort of feel safe to share their views and just have a little bit more of a light-hearted feel about snooker. That's what we've always had the mission to do, and it's great to have so many people getting on board with that. The new channel, the new hub, as you call it, is going to be great, and make sure you follow us on Twitter as well to get involved in polls and all sorts of stuff, and we might even have some sweepstakes for next year's World Championship, that sort of thing. Looking forward to it. It's going to be exciting times.
Lovely, and all that's left to say is good evening, Hazel.
Good night, JV.